Toyota and Maruti Suzuki have come together, and so has Ford and Mahindra. The last few months have seen some of the world's largest car makers reevaluate their business strategy in India. But is that the only option for car makers who are looking to tide over these trying times, especially since India continues to be one of the most exciting but trying markets for car makers? Joining us now is the editor of Autocar India, Hormazd Sorabjee. Hormazd, so good having you. Thanks much for taking the time out. What's your thought, Hormazd? We in these trying times, we're seeing newer trends emerge, new partnerships, specific partnerships coming in as well, and at a scenario when inventories gone down a little bit, but the sector doesn't seem to be out of the woods as yet.
No, absolutely right. I think the sector certainly isn't out of the woods. In fact, I think it might even get slightly tougher post BS6 when you're going to have a different dynamic altogether. Cars are definitely going to get more expensive. Diesel cars, especially small diesel cars, are set to be extinct. That I don't think is going to be replaced by petrol cars one-to-one. People are talking about CNG, but we don't have the network yet. So I think definitely, post BS6, I don't think we're going to see a huge upward trajectory either. And coming to collaborations, that is the way forward, just because the cost of investing in the new disruptive technology, whether it's electric, whether it's autonomous, is just making manufacturers having to pool their resources. It's not just a trend in India, but it's a global trend as well. But we've seen this panning out in India with Maruti Suzuki, Toyota, and Mahindra and Ford as well.
What do you think is leading to this, Hormazd? Is it uncertainty about what could happen in the near future, or is this certainty that things may not shape up as per what an individual capability of a car maker would be, and therefore best to do it by combining best practices of two companies?
Well, I think what is, just to put it, the certainty is that there is uncertainty because, it's not a question of anything that there's right now. There is no one silver bullet because everyone's talking about electric, but everyone deep down knows it's very far away. You have to then continue investing in traditional technologies like internal combustion engines. Then there's hybrids also thrown into the mix. So, when you have to invest in multiple technologies because you can't afford to be left out in any one of them, that puts huge strain on the resources of a company because these investments in each kind of technology is just absolutely humongous. And it's very difficult to do it alone. You need a scale effect. You need partners to kind of share the cost and even share the risk, of picking or betting on one particular technology. We've seen Volkswagen now going absolutely flat out into electric. Obviously, it's a result of them trying to distance themselves from Dieselgate as far as possible. But others are not so bullish on electric yet. Everyone knows it will come, but when? So there's a lot of uncertainty around it, charging infrastructure, all that sort of stuff. And that's, making things very unpredictable. And obviously, for manufacturers who have to invest in this, don't forget the auto industry requires a very long lead time. What you plan today can only pan out 2-3 years later. So it's just guessing that, which is the challenge. And that's why everyone wants to, kind of hedge their bets and invest in all the technologies, which they do jointly.
Okay, Hormazd, the other bit is, I remember a conversation that we had a few months back wherein you yourself mentioned that it's become difficult to figure out what the behavior of the millennial could be. And it's a pattern that you yourself haven't seen in your years as in tracking autos. Now, my question is the strategy of the current automakers, be it the JVs that they are doing, or be it trying some innovative products. I mean, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we'll get to know about it only when something becomes successful. But to your mind, are the strategies that the automakers are displaying right now apt for trying to wade through the maze of the unpredictable behavior of the millennials?
Well, I think, I think clearly the millennials or the new age buyer is quite different, has quite different set of priorities from the, let's say, previous car buyer. And that is their priorities have completely changed. For example, today, things like an infotainment system, connectivity, something even like a sunroof makes a decision between buying or not buying a car. I mean, the old factors of a strong engine, great ride and handling, which were really the kind of earthy values of a car. That's not appreciated anymore. So I think some manufacturers have done that well. I think a company like MG has done that brilliantly. You know, a lot of people were skeptical about MG being successful in India given its Chinese origins, but I think they've really hit the sweet spot. They've given stuff where it matters the most. The car looks quite substantial. It's absolutely loaded, massive sunroof. Kia has also done the same thing. So I think this is the way forward. This is a template, and manufacturers are going to have to look at these sort of trends when they develop cars. And a lot of manufacturers, especially the Volkswagen Group, which is much more minimalistic. It's much more on the safety, the engineering, that sort of values which they bring, may not be so relevant. So they'll also have to adapt to look at what the millennial wants. And I think that's what most manufacturers are doing. So really there is a shift in priorities from the millennials, and manufacturers have to adapt accordingly.
Hormazd, the other bit is the split opinion about what's happened in the months gone by, the festive season. Of course, all of us have stated that we need to look at October and November combined because of the split festive season last year versus this year. Now, my question is, would you reckon in your wisdom that what's happened thus far is clearing of inventory of sorts and not necessarily a smart pickup in the nature of the buyer or the behavior of the buyer? Is the buyer still on tenterhooks?
Yeah, well, obviously the festive season did see some uptick in sales, but not to the level one would have expected. And the buyer is completely on tenterhooks because, one, he is completely confused, and firstly, there's so much information being thrown at him. This whole talk about electrics, this whole talk about emission standards. You've got BS6 cars coming. People are worried, will it run on BS4 fuel? And there are some BS6 cars. That they're worried whether if you buy a BS4 car now, will it run on BS6 fuel as well? So there's a lot of confusion in the market. It should settle down after April 2020 when you have BS6 fuel and BS6 cars. But as I said, cars are going to get a lot more expensive then. So I expect, consumers finally to end up buying cars right now and hanging on to them because honestly, I think you're getting some great deals in the market right now. And certain good products are going to be completely phased out just because they don't meet the standards. So I think, there's a lot of flux in the market right now. And I don't see, let's say this sorting itself out until the regulation changes are over. And don't forget, the industry consumer has been bombarded with a series of safety and emission regulation changes, which, has created a lot of ripples.
So, Hormazd, as we look at the strategies that companies are deploying, which of the JVs, I know it might be difficult for you to kind of lay it out in, predict per se, but if you were to just give a guess of which of the moves that some of the car makers have done in recent times will bear fruit, be it the JV between Toyota and Maruti or Ford and Mahindra, or be it some innovative strategies, be it the marketing or features for some of the other companies, which one do you think has the metal to come out trumps over the course of the next 12 to 24 months?
Well, I think honestly, it's not a JV, but as a conglomerate, I think the Hyundai-Kia group, that's the one I would bet on right now, because though Hyundai and Kia are fiercely competitive in the market as far as from a brand point of view, but from a group point of view, they can leverage a lot of synergies. In fact, I think they're going to rule the diesel segment with Maruti vacating it to a large extent and other players as well, Renault, Volkswagen, all of them getting out of diesel, Toyota as well. So I think they have a big opportunity there because they've developed a very good diesel which can be shared across models across both groups. So Hyundai Kia will use the same engine. They'll get the economies of scale over there. So I think Hyundai Kia, they're the ones to watch out for. And if anyone can put a dent in Maruti's market share, it's going to be the Koreans. MG also, you've got, they've had a good strategy. In fact, what MG has done is given a lot of Chinese car makers confidence to come into the market. And I think they're all kind of waiting at the gates. So, you've got Chang'an, you've got Great Wall, you've got Chery, all of them looking at coming in as well. So I think that's much more long term. But looking at the current JVs, Mahindra Ford, they've announced a JV. It's on paper, it is very good because, what it does allow is them to develop products which they couldn't have done otherwise because it's too expensive to do on their own. So there'll be a couple of SUVs, couple of MPVs which both will share. So on paper, it looks good, but obviously, executing it, these joint ventures is a lot more difficult. Toyota, Suzuki, I think that's an interesting JV, or it's more like a collaboration. It's not so much a JV. I think one can long term one gets the sense that Toyota will take over Suzuki. Don't forget, Suzuki is a very, very small company, even globally, and they just cannot invest in technology like EVs or hybrids, which Toyota is there. So obviously they've had to partner with Toyota for that. And we've seen something very interesting in India. What it's done is that Suzuki has given some of it, or Maruti has given some of its models on a platter to Toyota as part of this deal. So you've got cars like the Glanza, which is a rebadged Baleno, going to Toyota. And interestingly, Toyota is getting out of the sub 10 lakh segment altogether. So they're going to be stopping production of the Etios, the Leva. They're getting out of that segment. It's quite clear that it's a very low margin segment. They can't compete over there. And they're going to be using Maruti products for that. And what does Maruti get in return? It gets a little bit of the technology which Toyota has globally, and maybe some badge engineered products going ahead. So yeah, that's what it is. But I think it's such a fast evolving market. It'll be interesting to see how things pan out going forward.